Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So today we have the second installment of Q&A, and I have 4 questions for today that I'm going to answer in real time. So like I did with the first Q&A session, I took the questions that I had, entered them into a random number generator or a random number sequence generator, so that way there's no possibility of favoritism happening for any of the questions. And we have 4 good ones ranging from a variety of different topics. So I'm looking forward to answering them. So let me stop running my mouth. Let's go sit down in the welding room and do some Q&A. All right, just like the first round of Q&A, and like I said at the beginning of this video, I'm going to be answering these questions in real time. So if I'm doing any stuttering or if there are any lulls in what I'm saying, just bear with me as I am thinking these things out and coming up with answers to these questions in real time as I'm sitting here filming this currently. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into question number 1. So the first question reads, what is something you are passionate about outside of what people may expect, and why? And this is a great question. So you guys see on this channel just what I'm doing in here in terms of welding, fabrication, race car stuff, so on and so forth. I've given a couple of glimpses into what I do outside of what you guys see on the channel, but I try to be pretty guarded and cautious about showing my personal life on kind of the world's stage this way. But I do have a number of other interests and passions and hobbies and so on and so forth. Kind of the ones that people may expect. I am pretty interested in firearms. I've done a bit of building with the AR platform in the past. Gone pretty deep down the rabbit hole with that stuff, and I'm not going to disclose what I have or anything else, but I have gone kind of crazy in that realm in that regard, and I do enjoy shooting and guns quite a bit. Beyond that, I'm quite passionate about music and constantly searching for new sounds that I like. I'm not tied to any particular genre or anything along those lines. Obviously, there's the videography and photography aspect of it, but some of the ones that people may not think that I'd be interested in, I guess 2 of them are collecting UV reactive glass and collecting houseplants. So the UV reactive glass piece, I forget exactly how I came to know about it. If I were to guess, it was probably watching a YouTube video. But when I say UV reactive glass, I'm referring to uranium glass, cadmium glass, selenium glass, manganese glass, lead glass, so on and so forth. And I'll put on the screen now, I'll put a photo of the display case that I have with all the different colored pieces of glass in there. And what these pieces of glass essentially are, they're glass that have bits of those pre-named, or those elements that I named, impregnated into them during the production of the glass. When you hit them with UV light, typically either 365 nanometers or 395 nanometers, the pieces of glass will glow different colors. And the different elemental constituents will dictate the color that the glass glows. Uranium, the typical one for that is a very bright green, like a fluorescent green. Cadmium glows kind of like an orangish reddish color. Selenium's typically pink. Manganese will be a clear glass normally, whereas uranium has a bit of a green hue to it. But manganese will glow typically green. I think there's some blue. There's some other different colors as well. I'm still fairly green, no pun intended, to all of this. But I have a fascination with pretty beautiful colors, and when I saw kind of what the uranium glass and the different UV reactive glasses, or glow glass, I guess we'll call them for the rest of this segment, the different colors of the glow glasses I thought was super cool and something that I wanted to have in my possession. I sat and looked at it for a while, and I have money out in so many different places with the cars and just living life the way that I do, that I convinced myself that you don't need to buy that, it'll just go crazy down the rabbit hole with it. Well, the seed was planted in my head, and I decided finally to buy a couple pieces of uranium glass, which then became more and more and more. And my collection is not nearly as robust as some people's, but I look forward to each night when I get to my house to hitting the button on the UV LED ribbon light that I have, turning my cabinet on, and seeing all the beautiful, pretty colors. It's kind of like magic to me, and it is just something that I have kind of a deep appreciation for, that I find it kind of difficult to put into words. The plant piece kind of falls in the same category, the same mechanism as the glow glass does, where it's something that I had always been peripherally interested in, but had convinced myself that, oh no, the price of the plants is too high, and I don't want to deal with trying to keep something alive, and so on and so forth. But in the back of my mind, I had always been very interested in bonsai trees, and always thought they were cool. Kind of it's them looking like a normal tree, but being in a cute, small stature, I thought was kind of cool and kind of neat. So it's been a couple years ago at this point in time, I got interested, or I'd finally decided to go to my local Home Depot just to see what they had. Maybe they would have a bonsai tree there, and I finally reached the point where I said, screw it. I'll get one, and either it will stay alive and that will be a success, or I'll kill it and I can at least say that I tried to have one and tried to keep it alive. So I went and I bought a braided money tree, and it came in a pot, and I got some plant food for it and found a stand for it and placed it in front of my window in my home office. And as time went on, it continued to grow, has continued to flourish since then. And that gave me the confidence to go, well, I have one plant, so let's look for others. So one plant became 2, became 3, became 5, became, I forget how many that I have at this point in time. But I'm not married to any particular type of plant, but I like ones that look like kind of a dwarf tree that I can keep in my house. So those two things are not generally what I would expect people to think that my interest would be comprised of. I mean, not that I'm like a stunning example of masculinity or anything along those lines, but the way that I present and carry and conduct myself in my everyday life, it is kind of in an aloof manner, and I work on things here and work with my hands. I work a blue-collar job, which typically you think of somebody who's into blue-collar stuff as drinking beer by a bonfire. Well, I don't drink, and my interests extend into a variety of different kind of oddball things. And I've made jokes with my friends that I'm turning into a little old lady with the glass collection and the houseplants. But two things that I think are cool, just nice things to look at, and I find it kind of cathartic to tend to the plants and to sit and look at my glow glass. So may not be something that people expect, and that's kind of the rationale as to why those things are interests of mine, and the collections of both of them are just going to keep growing as time goes on. On to question number 2. And this question reads, when did you realize you'd do welding and fabrication as a full-time job? I really like this question. So, to be quite frank and quite honest about it, I didn't really have a plan B. When I was in high school and going through kind of the normal education system, I did not do well in that environment. I think at the end of given quarters, at least the way that we do it in the American school system, or the way that it was done when I was in school, the school year is broken up into 4 quarters. And you're not going for 12 months in a row to go to school. But in each one of those quarters, I would always follow a trend where I would do very poorly at the beginning of the quarter and pretty much through the middle of it, and then start putting effort in and kind of bring it around at the end. And bringing it around could mean either I would do exceptionally well at the end of it and actually put forth an effort, or could mean that I kind of scraped the bottom of the barrel and at least got grades that were sufficient to maintain my eligibility for athletics and so on and so forth. So I didn't do well in that atmosphere, in that environment, had a bunch of problems with the faculty and with, I guess, dealing with the authority that way. Not that I'm hugely rebellious or anything, but I just don't particularly like being told what to do. But cars were always something that I was interested in. That had been the predominant passion of mine throughout the course of my kind of, I guess, growing up, in my adolescence, my teenage years, so on and so forth. So I finally got through high school, didn't really have a plan as to what I wanted to do after that. But I realized that I liked working on cars, and I spent so much time being not happy in the environment of primary academia that I just wanted to do things that I enjoyed. I spent so much time doing things I hated that it was time to flip the script on its head and start doing things that I really liked. So I dove in headfirst into cars and automotive. Had no idea what I was doing, and quickly realized that if I wanted to start working on cars and wanted to pursue racing or anything along those lines, then the welding and fabrication piece just kind of came along with that. So I bought myself, it was a Lincoln Handy MIG, the cheapest MIG welder that I could get, zero experience doing welding and fabrication, and just set out to start gluing things together. So I went from that to realizing, or to becoming interested in building exhaust manifolds. And I thought it was really cool, kind of the shapes that they could be comprised of, the beautiful colors and the beautiful weld aesthetics and everything. And this is back in the days of Honda Tech being kind of the epicenter of the welding and fabrication industry, or at least the people that were doing the welding and fabrication work, the boots on the ground people. That's kind of where everybody came to, and that was the kind of rally point for that. So at this point, I was still doing it just from a hobbyist perspective, or from a hobbyist standpoint, I guess. And I started just diving into the deep end and playing around, getting the pipe elbows that exhaust manifolds or turbo manifolds are typically built out of, and building my first manifold, or my first attempt, and it went horribly. Second attempt went horribly. I think it took until the 4th or 5th attempt before I had one that would actually bolt onto the side of an engine and clear body panels and everything else. But the whole time through this, I still never viewed it as kind of a realistic way to make a living, or it wasn't a realistic profession. It was always kind of like a toy hobby type thing, and something that I could do on the side, maybe for a little bit of money here and there, but not something that was going to provide me with a livelihood. Well, eventually, with getting enough experience and enough people looking at what I was doing and asking, hey, you weld, can you fix this? Can you build this? Can you do so on and so forth? And falling in love with the process, doing it as a full-time job kind of came accidentally, where I finally reached the point and realized it's like, oh, if I'm building a manifold and I price it at price point A and I have B margin or B amount of money I'm making off of it, well, that's enough where I could buy this expensive car part, or that could be the amount of money that could go towards a mortgage or could go into savings, or so on and so forth. And the financial responsibility point or portion of it came much later. But I guess it's the long-winded and a bit of historic way to answer your question, or partially answer it. When did I realize I'd do it as a full-time job? When it just kind of happened. It was never really the plan, but it's really all that I've done for my adult life. And it's something that to this day, I still derive an immense amount of enjoyment out of. So I still can't quite believe that it's real. It feels like I'm coming here just to tinker and play around every single day, but it happened accidentally, and I'm really glad that it has happened in that manner. I know a lot of people, they go to work every single day and they despise what they do. They hate who they work with. They hate the tasks that they're doing. They feel like they're caught in the rat race, or just spinning their wheels and not getting ahead at all. But the best thing that I can say is, if you have something that you are passionate about and you can somehow manage to find the balance where you don't ruin the passion and you don't ruin something that is a fun escape, while turning that into a money-making opportunity and a career livelihood opportunity, highly recommend it, as being able to wake up just about every single day and look forward to, if not be almost biting my nails in anticipation to come in here and knock out the next portion of a project, or start the next manifold build, or so on and so forth. All the stuff you guys see me do on here, it's a pretty magical thing. And I could not be more thankful, more appreciative, and more humbled that over the course of all of these years, which we're coming, or actually this 2024 is the 15th anniversary of BPA. The fact that I've gotten to play for my entire adult life, essentially, is just really cool. So hopefully that answers your question. I know I went off and rambled a bit, but that's the long-winded way of how and when I realized that this was going to be what I do. On to question number 3. And this is a question that deals with kind of my welding process and the way that I build my parts here. And this question reads, why do you weld your logo on your manifolds all the way around? Wouldn't a few dabs on each side be enough? What is the reason? Thanks. Well, thank you for asking the question. This is another good one. And I think one of you guys actually answered the question correctly in the comments, or in a response comment to this question, but I'll give my take on it. So, as you guys have seen on pretty much all the parts that I build, whether it be for my car or for customer cars, customer manifolds, production manifolds, so on and so forth, they all receive a BPA brand logo, a brand tag that I weld onto the manifolds. And this is to show that this is a BP Autosports manifold, BP Autosports part. It's my work and kind of my signature on the parts. And with that in mind, the reason that I weld them the whole way around is so it's very difficult to remove the BPA. I take a lot of pride in the work that I do here, and it's been a large amount of blood, sweat, tears, sweat equity, frustration, anxiety, stress, so on and so forth. All the things that go into being self-employed, running a small business, and especially one like this, where in all actuality, the amount of work that it takes to build these parts and to build these turbo setups and everything as opposed to the amount of money that you generally can realistically charge for them, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. So if I build a part and I put a portion of myself into it, I want my signature to be on it permanently, or as permanently as it can be. So if I put a few dabs of filler rod on it, it makes it very easy for somebody to come in with an angle grinder or other cutting tool, take that off, grind it down, and they could slap their logo on it and claim that, hey, this is an APB manifold as opposed to a BPA. So I weld the logo the whole way around, to make it difficult to remove the BPA logo without kind of destroying the overall aesthetics of the part. And B, it's another place where I can put some precision welds down, showcase my skill set additionally, and it makes it undeniable that it is one of my parts, something that I built. And like I said, it's a portion of my life that I have put into that manifold and is going out to hopefully, not to sound cheesy or anything, but to hopefully make somebody or aid in somebody making their dreams come true. So hopefully that makes sense. It's pretty much completely pride-based, and if I put the effort forth to build the part, I damn sure don't want somebody cutting that signature off, putting theirs on, and saying that it's their part as opposed to mine. On to the fourth and final question, and this one is a two-parter. So it reads, what is an elegant solution you have found for a problem or challenge? And the second part is, and has there ever been an instance where you didn't leave enough room for final weld access? So we'll take this from the top and work our way down. So what's an elegant solution you have found for a problem or challenge? Man, it's hard to pinpoint just one example of this, as with the parts that I build here and kind of the way that I like to build things, everything that I do, I attempt to employ that elegance into. And whether it be something as simple as a little bracket or something as complex and all-encompassing as a full turbo system, with every little thing that I do on each portion of a project or each portion of building a part, I attempt to do it in a manner where it appears intentional. And that's the biggest thing with it. If you're building a throttle cable bracket or something along those lines that could just be a simple little bent piece of metal with a couple of holes drilled into it, well, it only takes a little bit longer to cut a triangle gusset or two, figure out the center of the triangle, drill a speed hole, chamfer it, so on and so forth, weld that together, and then you have something that is not only stronger, but also more aesthetically appealing as well. So I guess the best answer for the elegant solution portion of this question would be a lot of the bracketry that I do around here. And I have a lot of fun with that and with figuring out a very strong and robust and also aesthetically pleasing way to mount various components to the car. And you guys have seen I do a lot of triangle gusseting, a lot of speed hole drilling, so on and so forth. To my eye, I really like the way that it looks, and some people may love it, may hate it, but that is the way to take something that could be otherwise kind of bland and mundane and turn it into something that appears intentional, that is methodically produced, and like I said, is quite functional as well. So the second portion of this question, has there ever been an instance where you didn't leave enough room for final weld access? Absolutely. I've done that a number of times on different manifolds in the past. And you sometimes get a little bit anxious and either subconsciously or ignorantly skip a step, or you don't plan ahead, so on and so forth. And it comes with experience where the instances of kind of welding yourself into a corner that way or building yourself into a corner, ideally they happen less and less. But it's possible to happen to anybody at any point in time. So, I mean, even the Inconel header on my Mark IV Supra, when I was putting that together, that header uses dual slip collectors as opposed to a normal fabricated collector like you guys have seen me cut for exhaust manifolds many times on the channel. But the dual slip, if you guys have seen them before, you have a tube that slides into the collector, and then there's a cup over top of that inlet tube that slides over top of the collector. And normally, or to do it correctly, you'll take that primary out once you have established where that outside exterior cup is going to sit, and you weld it on the bench. So I wasn't thinking, and I got the cups in place, they were tacked in place, and I meant to break the primaries off and come to the bench and weld them all together that way. But I was so excited to see the header done that I welded those primaries to the head flange first. And it wasn't until I was sitting looking at it afterwards that I went, oh no, I just made a big boo-boo. And working with Inconel, you can't easily cut it with kind of like carbide-tipped, carbide-toothed cutting tools, meaning like a Sawzall or a bandsaw or things along those lines. You generally have to cut it with abrasives. And I'm sitting there thinking like, oh crap, like I have to figure out a way to get the angle grinder in there if I'm going to cut this header apart to weld these cups on the bench and then try to put everything back together and have it look some bit aesthetically pleasing. And I realized that that wasn't going to be a reasonable option. So I set out and started welding the cups with the manifold assembled. And those are 3-in-1 collectors, so you can weld probably, I would say, 60 to 70% around each one of the cups before you get into the center portion where it gets really tight and really difficult to get in there. And it took everything that I had, cranking gas flow up, using a bent electrode, using 5 feet of stick out. Obviously, I'm exaggerating there, using a ton of stick out, and probably the most precise torch movements that I've ever done before just to try to get these welded together. And the way that it usually goes, 2 of the 3 I was able to get them welded up. The third one, it was probably the most difficult welding that I've ever done. And I'm pissed at myself, I'm frustrated at the situation, and trying to very daintily go in there and add filler rod and not blow a hole in the metals. That would just be salt in the wound at that point in time. But the weld that particular weld, the difficult one, did not come out great, but at the end of the day it was welded. And it's something that isn't visible. Only I would know that it's there. If you guys ever see the car in person, then feel free to poke around and try to find where it's at. If you can, then more power to you. I'll probably give you a t-shirt or something along those lines. But that's been the worst one. I've had numerous other pipe turbo manifolds that have been tight confines, but generally with a bent electrode and a little bit of ingenuity that way, I'm able to go through and weld everything together without too much fuss. And like I said, as time has gone on, I've learned how to build manifolds more effectively and in a more easily finish welded manner that you just try to mitigate and limit the number of times when you have to dive into the bag of tricks and do some kind of out of the box weird things to make it work. So there we have it. Another round of Q&A in the books. And I'd like to thank you guys very much for reaching out with your questions and allowing me to sit down, answer them, and do something that I have a lot of fun with. So I think I'll probably end up doing this as a quarterly deal, so that way the channel is not dominated by Q&A sessions, but it at least gives me a way to more directly interact with you guys, and again, to sit and kind of work my way through questions, work on the way that I think, and maybe consider some things that I've never considered before. So thank you guys again very much for providing me the opportunity to do so, and hopefully you enjoy it. If you do, please let me know in the comments below, and I look forward to the next installment of Q&A. So with that being said, and with all the questions being answered at this point in time, I think that'll be about the end of this episode. So thank you guys as always for tuning in, for coming here for Q&A, coming on all the different automotive journeys with me, and hopefully you guys are having as much of a blast with all of it as I am. So we're almost to the point where the Mark II will go away for wiring, and at that point in time, the old Lexus will make its way to the center bay there, and we will be full steam ahead with this. So that's to look forward to. Looking forward to getting the Mark IV to the track this year as well, getting that car running, and keeping the collective Toyota train rolling down the tracks. But all those things will be happening in the future. For right now, we're done with this episode. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, check out the website for manifolds, for merch, for all things good that way, and I will see you all in the next episode.